Hello friends, I'm Rosa. Welcome to the channel. So we are doing my July wrap up a little bit late this month, but your girl's been busy. It is what it is. However, I enjoy sitting down and just talking about all the books that I've read throughout the month so much, so still wanted to do that. It's just a little bit late this month. However, I only managed to read 6 books throughout July, and I think I also said in my TBR video that my TBR for July was completely undoable. I had so many reading goals, however, I knew that July was gonna be busy. It turned out that it was actually busier than I thought it was going to be, and on top of that, I spent an entire week sick with the flu. I can't read when I'm that sick because I can't keep my eyes open. So I'm behind on all my reading plans now and I got some catching up to do. It's fine, I'll get there eventually. However, I got the 6 books to talk about, so get settled. We're gonna go a little bit more in depth with these books compared to what I usually do because we only have 6 books to go through. But I don't know, grab a snack, grab a drink, get settled, and let's get started. First off, I want to talk about a book that I actually started in June, and it was because I have a book club over on Patreon. You can check it out by clicking on the link in the description box or the one in the pinned comment. But I started this in June. I was super late with reading it. Finally finished it in July. Now I'm behind on Book of Night, but we're getting there. But the book that I'm talking about is The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake. This has been like super hyped everywhere, basically. I kind of get it, but at the same time, I also slightly don't get it. But anyway, this is an adult fantasy, but it's kind of urban. It is set in our world, sort of. Yeah. Let's just go with our world. Yeah. We have a little bit of romance in there, but it's not really about that at all. It's more about powers and magic and a secret society. It also does come off very dark academia, so if that is your vibe, maybe you would like this. I don't remember reading other dark academia. I know that I have, but I don't remember what, so I can't really compare it to that. Like, I know that I've read at least one dark academia book, but I just can't recall what it is. But anyway, in this book we follow, how do I explain this? We follow 6 individuals who have, with the exception of 2 of them, they have different powers. The last 2 have similar powers to each other. I am not gonna go too into details about their powers because there's a lot to it, but like one is an empath, can kind of change your feelings. One can read your thoughts. One is basically like energy. It's a bit hard to explain, but she can, for example, make plants grow. One has the ability to see through illusions, which is a whole other thing, like magicians, or I think they call them medallions in this book, but they can, like, if you have a SID, which I could use this ability today because my skin is awful, but you can basically cast an illusion on your skin, like hide imperfections, if you will. But he can see through that. So like if you have a nose that you don't like and you change it with your magic, it's just gonna show up as an illusion. You're not actually changing your nose, but he can see through that illusion. So that's his ability. And the last 2, the 2 that are kind of like hand in hand, they're also very rivals. Like that's the kind of vibe I get from them. Their ability is, or abilities, they're physicists, I think they call no, that's not the right word. They deal with more like physical powers, but like not like they punch and that sort of stuff, but they can move things and stuff. It's very difficult to explain. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna give you regarding their powers though. They're approached by this guy called Atlas Blakely, asking them if they want to be a part of this like secret society, but they have to basically trial for a whole year. And all that's told is that 5 of them will be accepted into the society. It's basically like the Alexandrian Society, so it has to do with the Alexandrian Library and all that knowledge that is hidden from everyone else. They have access to it. If they are accepted into it, there's a whole lot more to it than that, but you know, this is about the first year at this, this not school, but at this place. But only 5 will be accepted, and the last person has to deal And other than that, like the Alexandrian society and all that, it's basically about them improving their abilities, getting to know each other, basically hating on each other because they don't really get along, any of them. Not really. There's some drama, there's some twists and turns, but don't think like high school drama, think more adult drama somehow. I don't really know. It's not like it's very much an adult book. So think more like adult drama, whatever that means. Let's go with it. And yeah, it was very interesting at times. There's a lot of talk about different science stuff. So a lot of talk about like how to make black holes, for example, and explaining how to create time or like go back in time. And I don't even know how to explain this, but there was a lot of that kind of talk that kind of confused me at times. Also because some of the words that are used are words that I don't necessarily know. Like it's not stuff that we learn about in school. It's like the words is what I mean, because English is not my first language. So a lot of this was a little bit more, I want to say like advanced or like specific kind of English words that you don't necessarily come across in your everyday language. And I definitely felt that while reading it. I had to think, like I had to stop and think about it, certain couple of things here and there. The whole science aspect to it was interesting until it got a little bit too much for me. Like it just kind of felt like it was a bit dragged out. Like it's hard to explain, but it's also there for a reason. So I can't really, yeah. It's also there for a reason. I just feel like it was a little bit too much at times, just like a little bit. If you are someone who is definitely in need of like connections with characters when you're reading books, this might possibly not be your kind of book, because I'm pretty sure I said that before, but none of the characters in this book are really through and through likable. They're not supposed to be either, I'm pretty sure. They're supposed to be a little bit pretentious and schemy and backstabby, if you will, but you do grow bonds with some of them. At least I did. I could understand if some other people wouldn't, but I did kind of grow to like at least like 2 of them, maybe 3 out of the 6. But yeah, if you are like someone who's very much in need of connecting with characters and liking them, you're gonna have a little bit of a hard time with this one, I think. But other than that, like, I understand the hype to a certain point. I don't think it's the greatest book that I've ever read. It was entertaining. It was fun. I like the twists and the turns. I am excited to see where this is going. So despite not fully loving this book, every single bit of it, I'm very much looking forward to the Alice Paradox, because this ends off on a like, what the heck? And I have questions that I need answered. But yeah, it was a little bit of a drag sometimes, just like a little bit with the science talk. Just be aware of that going into it. It might be your thing. Like, I don't know, if you are a sciencey kind of person, you might also find flaws in this, which I did read from other people. Like, some of it actually didn't make sense to people who have studied the stuff. Well, that's all fun. Like, I don't know. To someone who hasn't, it didn't make sense to me anyway because I didn't understand it. But it was quite fun to read anyway. So not my favorite read of this month, however, but actually not even close. I think this might actually be the one that I second least enjoyed. That, I don't know if that makes sense. Moving on. The other Patreon pick for July. Was it July? Yeah, this is July. So it's the secondary pick. We do 2 picks every month. There's a primary pick, which I cover in a vlog, and then there's a secondary pick, which I just read for those who don't want to read the primary pick. And the secondary pick for July was Dark Rise by C.S. Passett. I don't know how to pronounce a lot of last names. I apologize. This, though, is young adult. It's fantasy, but it's like historical fiction, so historical fantasy. It includes a lot of like, at least like mentions of magic, but also powers. And it's like a classic light versus dark kind of story. So we have 2 sides, the good and the evil, and they're fighting each other. They've been fighting each other for some time when the king, the leader of the dark side, was beaten. However, this is like years later, and there are rumors that the king is going to return. Some of his followers are working on bringing him back. They are chasing down some of the light people, so the good people, taking them prisoner and killing them, and that there's a whole lot there. We follow a guy who I believe is called Will, right? Yes, his name is Will. And he's been on the run for a while now because his mom was killed and the people that killed his mom have been after him as well. So he's basically just been on the run. He's only 16, poor guy. But that's what he's doing. That's where we basically catch up with him. While on the run, he is told by one of his old acquaintances, I want to say, someone who used to work at his old house. I think that's who he was. He's approached by someone who basically tells him that his destiny is to fight with the light people, so the stewards, against the dark people. I just want to preface this by saying when I say light and dark, I don't mean like the way they look. Just so you know. I feel like it sounded wrong for a second and I just need to clarify. Okay. So at some point, Will basically has a run-in with the dark people. They're also called lions, some of them. So maybe I should call them stewards and lions. Although that is a little bit confusing as well. I like the titles that they got though. I will just like a quick input. I like the titles that they got, stewards and lions. I thought it was quite cool. However, he has a run-in with the lions, the dark people, or the dark side. And one thing leads to another. He ends up on the run with one of the lions and basically ends up at the stewards. There he learns more about his part in this upcoming war, and I think that's where I'm gonna leave it, but just know there's twists and turns to this. I was surprised at times, and I feel like it's one of those books that you can read a second time and maybe, you know, if you've like watched a movie and there's a major twist at the end of the movie and you're like, I gotta watch this again like tomorrow, maybe not tomorrow, but a couple of days later and like see if I can find all these like pointers towards the real truth, like what's going on here. That's how I feel about this book. Like you could read through this a second time and maybe notice a couple of things here and there that would point you towards what the heck is happening. So in that way it was quite interesting because there were some times where I thought a little bit about it, but it wasn't like super obvious at any point. I hope I'm not saying too much right now. I probably am. Other than that, this felt very flowy. The pacing was nice. I thought that this was a nice take on the classic like light versus dark as well. It could end up like, it has the potential to end up being a little bit cliche, if you will, because it's very like good and bad, but I felt like it worked here. You do have some situations that aren't necessarily good versus evil, and that is also very interesting. So the writing was very nice as well, like just very nice. It was very pleasant. And I did go through phases while reading this where I felt like I couldn't really put it down, like I had to continue. I wanted to continue, and some days I did, some days I didn't because I didn't have the time, but it's always cool as well when a book does that, so yes. Then we got ourselves a contemporary. It's an adult book. It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. I'm pretty sure that I decided to pick this one up because I saw people on another Discord server basically fanning over it. I think as well that I saw there was an announcement that it's being turned into a movie. I'm not much of a rom-com kind of person when it comes to movies. It's just not my thing. I don't know what it is, but I love a good adult contemporary romance, a rom-com. I love reading them. I don't like watching them. Don't know what it is. That's just the way it is. But I saw that it was being turned into a movie. I don't know when it's coming out, but at some point it is. And I felt like, okay, well, that feels like a pointer that I need to pick this up and read it. So I did. And it was cool. It was a little bit superficial at times because we follow Piper, who is an influencer. So she works on social media. She basically runs an Instagram and she has a lot of followers. She's a bit of an it girl in, I think it's Los Angeles, but I could be wrong. I can't really find it, but I think it's Los Angeles. But anyway, Piper lives a very high-paced life. She doesn't really take on any responsibility like whatsoever. She basically just lives off of the money that she gets from being an influencer, but also her stepfather's money because he works in like the movie business or something, so he has a lot of money. I think he might be a producer to be more specific, but I could be wrong about that. I don't always remember details after I've written or read books, I should say. I did not read this. Tessa Bailey did. Anyway, did I say read again? She also doesn't really know how to do relationships, but I feel like that is also partly due to her just being around the wrong people. Like, her social circle is basically filled up with those kinds of people that are only friends with certain people because they know they're gonna get something out of this friendship. So they're basically taking advantage of each other all the time for followers and, you know, that sort of thing. So she's in those circles. One thing goes a little bit wrong one day. Someone breaks up with her and Piper is like, I'm gonna throw a party because I don't want to end up being a joke because of this breakup. So she does. At a closed hotel in the middle of the night, she basically breaks in. It doesn't really go the way that she wanted and she ends up in prison, but is bailed out the next day by her sister. However, because of this whole situation, she ends up in trouble. Her stepfather basically gives her an ultimatum, or more or less, like, I think it's like, I'm cutting you off or you're going off to Westport, or maybe it's not even an ultimatum and he just sends her off to Westport, which is a fisher's town, a very small fisher's town, so not Los Angeles. Piper is absolutely shocked. She does not want to go, but she ends up going anyway, and in Westport she meets this dude whose name is Brendan, and he's not the nicest. At least not to start out with. It's kind of random because he's been a bit like, Westport is amazing, everyone's so nice to each other, you don't fit in here. But at the same time, he's so not nice to either Piper or her sister. So it's like, practice what you preach, dude. Like, don't be a douche. But anywho, the book is basically about, like, we follow their relationship, but also Piper finding herself and figuring out who she is as a person outside of social media. Like, what does she like? What are her hobbies? What is her connection with Westport? Because it's also where her father lived and where, well, her father and her mom before her father passed. So it was basically where they grew up, and yeah, that's what it's about. Piper connecting with Brendan, but also connecting with Westport and figuring out a little bit about her family and stuff. So this was nicely written. I did have to get a little bit used to Tessa Bailey's writing because it's a bit different from what I'm used to, I feel. Some of the writing, especially at the start of the book, when Piper is supposed to be this like super superficial person, was a little bit like, ooh, I will say, but just if you're completely thrown off by the start of the book, just hang in there. It does get better. Piper is actually a super likable character after a while. At least I feel like she is. Would I have liked a little bit more depth to both of the characters? Sure. Yeah, I would have. But I didn't mind too much, like, not too much. It was super cute seeing Piper also connecting with the different people in Westport and just figuring out her place and stuff. I felt like it was quite nice. I was pacing wise, if you are looking for like a super smutty romance, for example, this is not it. It is 400 pages. It does take a while to pick up. So would I call it a slow burn though? No, not necessarily. It's a bit in between of the two. It could be a bit too slow for some people if that's what they're looking for, but at the same time also a little bit fast for those who just love a good slow burn. But I felt like it was nice. It was a little bit like in between the two. And the humor was good. The vibes were good. I am looking forward to reading Hook, Line, and Sinker so much, which is about Piper's sister, and I have it lying on my table right now. I'm super excited to pick it up because I think I'm gonna like that one a little bit more than I like this one. And I like this one a lot. So then we have a sequel, actually, or it's a third book. It's the final book in a trilogy, and it's The Blood Traitor by Lynette Noni. This is the third one in the Prison Healer trilogy. So that being The Prison Healer, followed by The Gilded Cage, followed by The Blood Traitor. They are young adult fantasy romance with lots of magic. We also have royalty represented and rebels as well. It's basically like a royals versus rebels kind of story. But in this book, we follow Kiva. What's her name? Hold on. Oh my gosh, her name is Kiva. Okay, we follow Kiva. Or not in this one, but in the first one. I'm not gonna tell you what this is about because I would be spoiling the first one, so we're not gonna do that. But the first one is about Kiva, who is in a prison that's called Salindov, and she's been in this prison for 10 years. Salindov is basically a prison where prisoners are sent off, criminals, rebels, so on and so on. They're sent off to Salindov basically to die. It's not a very nice place, as you can probably tell. People either go insane from being in the, what's it called? Solitude? I don't remember what it's called, but you know, like isolation or that thing. Or they work themselves to death in the mines that are also in Salendov. But Kiva is there working as a prison healer because she is just very good at healing people. At this prison, I should probably say her father used to also be there with her, but unfortunately her father has passed from a sickness that was spreading throughout Salendov at some point. So now she's just there by herself. She does make some friends throughout the book. There's a little boy called Tip. There's also a guy who is constantly followed by a woman, and they are a little bit mysterious. That is the thing. She makes friends with some other people as well, and I believe in the first one, I don't really remember, but there's a couple of friendships in there as well. Just want to point that out. However, one day at Salendov, the rebel queen is taken in. However, she's in a coma, but with her being the rebel queen and also her being imprisoned, the royals that are currently in power in this world basically demands that she has to go through the trial of the elements. So in this book, we do have magic, but they're basically based off of the elements. So you have like wind magic, fire magic, earth magic, and also, what's the last one? Water magic. Oh gosh, I almost forgot what the elements are. That's embarrassing. So the rebel queen, who's currently in a coma, has to go through these 4 trials. No one's ever gone through them and survived before, but Kiva receives a message from the rebels basically demanding her to keep the rebel queen alive. So Kiva is like, I'll take on the trials for you. Yeah, I'll just do that. Yes. And that's all I'm gonna say, because saying anything more than that, I feel like I would start spoiling stuff. But just know, like, this trilogy has been so nice to read. It's so well paced. It's like one of those books where at times you're like, is this really important to the story? And then it turns out later on that it actually is. And I love that. I feel like that is something that I see in Sarah J. Maas's writing as well, so it was nice to see it in some other stuff. I know that it's a common kind of book thing, you know, with setups and payoffs, like it's a movie thing as well. However, I think the setups are so tiny and not necessarily something like super obvious is what I'm trying to say, that it just feels a little bit different in both The Prison Healer, and it's something that I've also seen in Sarah J. Maas's writing. Something like just smaller setups that you don't necessarily think about, and then suddenly you're like, oh right, that did happen. So that happened a lot throughout the first 2 books as well as this one, as far as I remember. Some of the relationships in these books are adorable as well. I love some of the characters so much. And pacing is nice, writing is nice. Just a very like through and through very enjoyable trilogy. So if you're looking for something young adult that's already finished with magic and romance, I would recommend this. It's just cute. Very much young adult though, but not insta-lovey, which is very important to me as a reader because I don't like insta-love. And then we have ourselves an adult fantasy, and that is The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Sori. So this is adult fantasy. Would you call this high fantasy? I don't... maybe some magic in there, romance in there. We also have royalty. We have something that's a little bit more, I wouldn't necessarily call it religion though, but they do call themselves priestesses. Priestesses? That sounds funny. But not necessarily like super religious. That doesn't make any sense. I don't know how to explain, but just roll with it, okay? So we follow 2 girls, and there's a couple of more POVs other than the 2 girls. Women, as you call them, women. However, the most, like, the biggest points of views in this book are the 2 women, and maybe a 3rd guy who does add a little bit more to the story here and there. His chapters were actually very interesting to read, now that I think about it. But anyway, the 2 women are the princess who has been imprisoned by her brother, who is currently on the throne, but she's been imprisoned in this palace. I don't want to know if I want to call it a palace. It's more like a not a tomb either. It's a hirana, so it's a temple. It's an Asian temple. That's also where the priestesses are, by the way. So she's been in prison there because she doesn't want to get burned. Her brother loves to burn women. I hate him so much. Truly just despise him as a character. I just want to punch him in the face. Anyway, don't burn women. That's the moral of the story. Yeah. But other than our princess, we also follow another woman at the temple who is actually a priestess. She does work there as a maid though, so one day, this is gonna be very difficult to explain without spoiling anything, so if this sounds super vague, it's only for your own good, okay? But one day something happens. Our princess basically sees our maid do something that she's not supposed to be doing, or be capable of at least, and basically decides to be like, you're going to be my maid from now on. So she sees her do something, and as a result of that, she decides to keep her clothes. It is worth mentioning that our princess is very schemy, or at least like a little bit schemy. She's a very intelligent woman, and she has plans, basically. I mean, I feel like it's fair being imprisoned in a temple. I would make plans to escape as well. Or at least like try to. So she has plans. She has plans. And just like that, their destinies are basically intertwined. There's a lot of talk about destiny in this book, which I thought was very interesting. There's a couple of different religions. Well, I suppose it is. We do have religion. There's a couple of different religions that it's quite interesting to see them talk to each other and be like, well, I know we don't follow the same religion. You can follow yours. I know that I have to follow mine. And just do it in a very respectful way. That was very nice. Them just kind of getting along with each other, aside from the prince, because he sucks. Or the king, or whatever he is. He sucks. He just sucks, okay? Don't burn women. But there's a group of people that follow a religion where they basically, I'm trying to phrase this in a way that's understandable. Upon birth, they're given a name that is a secret to themselves, but their name is basically their destiny. Or not necessarily their own destiny, it could also be someone else's destiny. So like they carry this destiny throughout their lives and keep their secrets, or keep their names a secret because of it. So like it doesn't necessarily have to be a name, it just has to be like a sentence or something. It's very interesting. The guy that I mentioned before with the very interesting point of view, he's one of those people who has a name that is basically a destiny. It was very interesting to read. I thought it was a cool concept. The way that the magic as well worked in this was very cool as well, because it's kind of woven in with religion, even though you don't necessarily, like, I can't think of a religion in real life that is made like that. And maybe that's why I don't necessarily see it as religion. Maybe that's why. But they get their powers from being submerged into this sort of like water that's not normal water, and sometimes they survive and sometimes they don't. If they survive, they're given powers, and they can do this up to 3 times, and once they've done it 3 times, they become elders. So I don't know why I'm explaining all of this. I just feel like it's very interesting because I think a lot of it seems very original, and that was just like super interesting to read. I had such a good time with this book. It really just gripped me. I enjoyed it so much. I also enjoyed the female badassery, and the princess especially just being done with her brother. Like, he terrifies her, don't get me wrong. I would be terrified too. But the way that she's just like, I'm gonna take him down. I love it. When she's being very infuriated with other male characters for not doing enough. I loved it. And yeah, I get, after reading this, why people would be calling it feminist, and I respect it. It was nice. It was very good. Looking forward to the Oleander Sword so much. I think it's coming out here in September. I ordered the special edition from Illumicrate to go with this one as well, because I love this. I love these stenciled edges. They're so simple, but they just work so well. So super excited for that. And then the last book, because I've also been talking for so long now. I really said that I was going to go in depth with these books, and I did. And now this video is going to turn out to be so long. I apologize. Actually, let me know. Do you like longer or shorter wrap-ups? Do you like less information, but just like, here's what I thought? Or do you enjoy the information? I would love to know. But the last book that I read was A Magic Steeped in Poison by Judy Eileen. This is young adult. It's Chinese mythology kind of, isn't it? I feel like it is. We have some romance in there. We have magic in the shape of tea, or like at least through tea. And did I say a little bit of romance? I don't remember, but there's a little bit of romance in there too. So this was about a girl who unknowingly accidentally killed her mother. She brewed some poisonous tea and gave it to her mother without knowing that it was poisonous, and her mother ended up dying from it. Her sister is currently, as we start this book, dealing with the same kind of sickness that is brought on by this tea. So our lead girl decides to, in an attempt to save her sister's life, get access to information and also stuff that could help basically cure her sister. She takes off to the capital, where there's a competition for people that can brew this kind of magical tea. If she wins, she'll get access to all this information and all these different ingredients that can help her cure her sister, so that's her goal. But being at this capital is a bit hard for her because she both has to deal with very mean competitors, but also there's a lot of backstabbery. There's a lot of like royal court politics, if you will. And she's also from an area that doesn't necessarily have the best relationship with the royals and like has the best view on the royals, if that makes sense. So it's a bit hard for her to be there. She makes some relationships. There's a girl that she really gets along with very well, but there's also a boy who's a bit mysterious and apparently very, very handsome. And he has some secrets as well. But I think that is all I'm gonna say about this book. I was super hyped for this actually. I thought it was gonna be super cute. Might be because of the cover, but like the cover is stunning. Don't say that it's not, because it most definitely is. However, this reads so YA, like it's just too much YA for me personally. It was very insta-lovey, which I did not really enjoy. Like I'd like a bit of a slow burn. I like them getting to know each other a little bit. Like I like to see the chemistry before it hits. The tea magic or magical tea system, I felt like did need a little bit more explanation than it had. It was a bit confusing at times. I just needed some more explanations, a little bit more building on that, because how does it work exactly? I still can't tell you. And I feel like maybe I also didn't fully vibe with the lead character as well. There's just, I don't know, maybe she's just not my kind of lead character. That's fine. We can't vibe with everyone. That said, I do feel like towards the end, something happened with the story. I am quite interested in knowing where it goes next. So I'm still interested in picking up the sequel, which I forgot what it's called. Okay, it's called A Venom Dark and Sweet. And it's coming out here in August, so it's coming out very, very soon in like 2 weeks. And I'm still interested in knowing where it goes next, even though I didn't fully vibe with this at times. I don't know what it was. If it was just kind of like nothing, it felt like nothing happened for a little bit, or whatever happened was confusing to me. Maybe it was the names and I just couldn't keep track of them or something. I don't know what it was, but I couldn't figure it out. So that's unfortunate for me, but I am sure that other people have loved this book. So it's probably just a bit of a personal thing, but I think a lot of it that I didn't fully vibe with is that the romance part it's a fairly big part of the story. The character is very important. The guy is very important to the story. And it was just so insta-lovey, and it's something that really turns me off. I can't do it. So that, along with the whole like magical tea thing not really being super well described, to me at least, and the pacing just seeming a little bit weird at times, just didn't make this the best reading experience, if I may say so. So this was probably my least favorite book of this month, or that I read in July. And I think the Jasmine Throne might have been my favorite actually. So yeah, was a bit of a slow reading month, but I've just been busy and sick, unfortunately. But catching up now. I do have a lot of like half-read books that I'm working through right now that I started in July and then just never finished. I have like Dune that I still need to read, and Priory of the Orange Tree, which I've not really had a chance to start yet. So we got a lot of reading ahead of us, but just didn't manage that much in July. Can you tell how annoyed I am that I didn't have time to read? I just want to lie on the couch and read my books and chill. That's all I want to do. But anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. So that was my reading wrap up. Sorry that this probably ended up being so long, despite it only being about 6 books, but I like to talk. I apologize though. If you've read any of these books and you enjoyed them or didn't, let me know in the comments. If you're still hanging out here at the end of the video, leave a T emoji in the comments section. And if you enjoyed the video, feel free to hit the thumbs up. If you want to see more videos from me, definitely consider hitting the subscribe button. Totally stumbled on the word hitting there. But I do content like reading wrap-ups, but also TBR videos, bookish unboxings, 24-hour readathons that we'll get into again sometime soon. Also weekly vlogs and, you know, all the booktube stuff. We do that here, so if that interests you, definitely consider sticking around. But that is all I got for you guys today, so I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye!
Oh, you know you're beautiful, and it's like